Welcome to the Retro Junkion.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over some cool stuff that just came out for the SidKick Pico. First, there's a new firmware version. It's SidKick Pico 0.21 is the new one. And I actually helped do the testing for this one because of a specific issue that I had with the version 2.02, I think it was, where I was having some menu corruption when I changed SID types on NTSC machines. So I made a bug report on GitHub, and the guy that makes the project, he goes by Frenetic. He told me to email him, so I did, and then that led into I told him what was going on and told him the system I had set up, and he said he only had one NTSC board, so he couldn't test it rapidly, and he couldn't reproduce the problem that I and another guy, maybe two other guys, were having. But I got that whole group of C64s at the beginning of the summer, right before summer. It was like 10 C64 boards. I fixed all of those, every single one of them. It was mostly PLAs, VIX, etc. But beyond that, I told him I'd be more than happy to help test the stuff with NTSC. And so he sent me, well, first of all, he sent me some debugging software, and I'll show you that here in a bit, what it looks like. It's pretty cool. It was a way for him to kind of see what was going on behind the scenes, I guess. And then also he was towards the end sending me release candidates to test out, because, well, one, just for functionality testing of them on NTSC boards, different NTSC boards, but also he added some cool new features to it from version 2.202, I think was the last one, and then this new one again is 0.21. But just to try out those features on NTSC machines and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. So I just wanted to show you, this is what I'll be using today to show you this stuff on. Just a C64, it's a bread bin board, but they're all the same C60. It's not a C64C, but it's 25407, which is probably the most common of them. And then I have a replacement PLA, but it's the PLS 100N or the 82S 100N. I'm using the SidKick hardware revision 2, but there's going to be where this is the issue I was having affected the version 1 just the same. And actually he just released a new version of this, which looks awesome. It's gonna have the RP 2040 and the flash chip and even the RGB LED integrated into his board, and it's smaller, so it'll be about the size of the original 6581 or 8580 SID chip. And he put all of this stuff on the bottom, so from the top it's a very open layout. I'll put in a picture of what it looks like from the GitHub page. It looks awesome. I haven't got one of those yet, but I am going to be ordering them today so I can have some new ones, because they look really cool. This original, or the original versions, these two, they look great in their own right, and they do a very cool thing. You have like the Nano Swin SID, and it is a decent replacement for a 6581 or an 8580, but the problem with it is it doesn't read in the paddle ports, which, there's not a ton of stuff that uses those paddle ports, but like if you like Arkanoid, it's just not good with the keyboard or with the joystick. So a game like that, you want the paddles, and it's just cool to have it, a true replacement, and it can do everything that the original did. And with these guys, which I'm sure you guys know if you're watching this, they also you can emulate either one of the SID versions. And then you can do some cool stuff where it's like, you know, they can flash this LED with what particular voice is on at the moment, and flash with intensity, stuff like that. It's just a really cool project, and I was excited to help out in the testing for this version. It ended up that the problem I was having was really more of a read the effing manual issue than it was a bug, but nonetheless, I learned a lot in the process, and I'm gonna show you some of that today. All right, let's go up to the TV. There's your just standard boot up screen for the SidKick, or excuse me, for the C64. So when these come up by default, the default configuration for the SidKick is at 8580, and I'm just going to show you right now it is working. Pull up a this is firmware version 0.20. I think I mentioned that, but that's important because this is the one that displays the issue that I was running into. So I just want to show you that it is working though. So, okay, this is a SID tester, and basically I just hit run all tests real quick. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and shut that off, turn it back on. So you can see that's working. To get into the SidKick menu, you either type in sys 54301, or you type in sys 54333, and then hit enter, and it'll pull up the config tool for the SidKick. And you see there, it didn't go into it. This is kind of indicative of the problem, but this is not the actual issue that led to me making the bug report. But typically when it's doing this, if you do it enough times, you will get in, okay? So if you keep doing sys 54333, it'll get in. But what you're seeing there, as I found out through this whole process, is indicative of the timings for the SidKick Pico's interaction with the board being off. And when I did the bug report, there was a way to fix this. I didn't catch that in the GitHub, and the guy that made all this, while I was going back and forth with him doing the testing, he pointed out that maybe I should try this because it's probably the problem. And it was the problem. But anyway, I'll show you. Here's the actual bug, as it were. I guess you could call it a bug. I mean, it's really not, because it was an issue with a known solution before I even reported it. It just wasn't necessarily like this specific issue wasn't laid out, but there was a solution for any issues like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the SID type to 6581, save that, and then we're going to exit out of the menu here. Now we're going to go back into the configuration menu, and you'll see what happens. Alright, and then you see that on the screen there, right below stereo balance, those dotted lines or dashes, that's menu corruption. And the thing with it is, it's not recoverable. So like this is toast now. To get back from this, you would have to go in and reprogram it, or he also put like a hard reset on the newer SidKick, on the version 2 SidKick, which is what I've got in here right now. But this will do the same thing on the version 1 as well. But it says hard reset on it, or hard reboot, something like that. But anyway, with that, I think you can recover this, but I've always recovered it by just programming in or reflashing the SidKick firmware back onto here. But that's your problem. And then what it ends up happening is, we'll just leave it at 6581. You can see the menu is corrupt there. So get out of here, and then we're going to go in. We're going to go back into the SID tester program that I had up before. It's going to be slower now because when you leave the menu, it loses the fast load. But run that, and then we'll go back down to the SID tester, and open that up. It's going to take a second, but not too long. It's a pretty simple program. Alright, now when I go to run this, nothing. And I don't know if any of you noticed there, but let me reboot this guy and go back into the config menu. You'll see here that not only did it corrupt the display right between these two, but it also set the volume all the way down. Okay, so when this first started happening, obviously you think, okay, well, you know, the menu's corrupt, but I'm not using that part of it anyway. But the real problem is that the volume got turned down. So I turn the volume up, save it, exit out of there, and then we'll go back in. And hold on, got to switch the directory. Nope, not ROM, run. And we'll go back in and fire up that SID tester again. So I went back into the menu, you saw that, and then I turned up the volume, which had been turned down when the menu got corrupted, right? So turn the volume back up, go back in, and nothing, okay? It doesn't restore. If you turn the volume up, it doesn't fix it, okay? So let me reset again, and then go back. And then if I go back in, you'll see that the volume's back down. There's no way to recover from this, or there wasn't a way to recover from this when I submitted all of it. Well, that's not even true, actually. There was a way, I just wasn't aware of it. Me and a couple of other people. There was a way to fix this. Now, once it happened, you would have to reflash it to fix the problem. But, so before, let me get out of this. Alright, so we're back here. So before, what you would do is you would go back to the computer and reflash your firmware, and then for a while what I would do to avoid this, well, until I got a hold of them when we went through all of this, is I would just leave it at 8580. It would work if you left it at the SidKick configuration to 8580. If you didn't change it to 6581, it wouldn't corrupt and it would function like you saw normally. So I left the GitHub thing, and he basically replied back and said, I only have one NTSC machine, I can't repeat this problem. And so he said, I'm gonna look at it, but it's hard to figure out. It's going to take some time. I only have the one machine, and I can't replicate the issue on it. So I just hopped on there and said, I'm happy to help test if you need somebody to do that. And then he emailed me, and we started going back and forth, and I was telling him, like, what led up to the problem. And he was sending me like release candidates, stuff like that, to try to see if we could figure out where it was coming from. He even had like a diag version firmware on here that would like show communication between the Pico and the C64 happening, and you could basically you'd hit like up or down on the C64, and it would like send another packet of data or whatever between the two, and it would tell you when there was a communication issue, and we could see it happening. And what we ended up, well, basically, as we were going back and forth, he said, have you tried adjusting the timings yet? And I said, well, no, I haven't. Where do you do it? And then he pointed me to it's called SK Pico timing. If you look in your, if you look in the file that you download to get the SidKick Pico firmware from GitHub, you'll see a folder that says SK Pico. Let me just make sure I have the name right. SK Pico patch. There you go. And what that was initially for, that SK Pico patch, is you could go in and there's like a folder that says PRG, and then there's a file that you can modify, and you could basically add PRGs to your SidKick that you could load into the, you could load into your C64. So like if you wanted a game or a certain, you know, utility, you could have it in the flash on the the SidKick Pico, and you could launch it by typing, for example, sys 54333 and -0. That would launch the first one, and then 1 would be the second one, etc. And that SK Pico patch was to patch the firmware file with your PRG files, so they would be available to load. But part of that as well is you run this, you run the SK Pico patch through either PowerShell or, you know, cmd.exe, just to, you know, through a DOS emulator, I guess. But part of it is it would accept arguments that were in the form of 2 numbers, and those arguments were timing settings to adjust. One of them was Phi2, I forget what the second one was for, but basically if you had one where it was having communication issues, then you had kind of an outlier of a system, and he had put in there this timing adjustment to fix that, or to, you know, try to fix it, to get the communication correct so it would work properly. And I'm gonna shut that off, and then basically on the computer you would go in and you would type, you would run the command, which was SK Pico patch, and if you had your PRGs you would put that in there. We're not really talking about that here, but you could load your PRG files into your SidKick, and then if you were having the issue where it wouldn't launch the SidKick menu, or it was doing that thing that I just showed you where the menu corrupted, you could adjust your timings, and then in theory that would go away. Well, I didn't know that, but I found that out. I didn't know about the timing adjustments. I knew about the program stuff, but I found that out, you know, through talking to him, obviously. But so I'm gonna switch right now to the newest firmware that just came out. Like I said, when this video was made, it came out yesterday afternoon. But I have another SidKick set up and programmed with the new version of firmware, and I just kind of wanted to show you. So when you would go in there, or on the computer there, when you were getting ready to copy the firmware over to your Pico, you could run that SK Pico patch and put in, adjust the timings as arguments to the command that runs SK Pico patch, and it would spit out a new firmware file for you that had your PRGs in it, in the flash for the Pico, and also adjust those timings to hopefully get rid of those problems. But in the new version, and this is cool, so we went through all this back and forth testing, and we finally found out that it was just the timing issue. So I had one of the outlier boards here that had that issue with timing, but to make it more obvious, he added some stuff to the firmware. So we're going to go into the SidKick Pico menu again, and again this is with firmware version 0.21, which is the newest one. Okay, so I issued the command to enter the menu, and you see what pops up here is unstable bus communication timing adjustment recommended. SK Pico patch is how you would do that adjustment. Now you could obviously see, if you see it's in yellow and it says adjustment recommended, timing adjustment recommended, and it's in yellow. This one is a warning as opposed to an error, I guess. So you can actually hit space and go ahead and do it, right? You can skip past that and just move on, and just ignore it. But if you do that and you get out of here and go back in, it's not going to work right, and it won't work reliably is the kind of the thing. So if you do, let's see if I can do, let's see, sys 54301, it does the same thing, it's just the other way to do it. Click that, and I'm getting a no warning that time, but you see the problem, and more so I guess, you see that it's telling me there's a problem, right? And now this is the other one. And again, this is a good example of how it's, if you don't fix it, it may work, but it's a actual issue. See how it says unstable bus communication detected, please adjust timings, SK Pico patch, and it's in red. Okay, this one you can't just skip past it. This is an error, so to say. So the system is telling you that it's the way that you have it, it won't work right. So it wants it fixed. So when you see this, you can hit run, stop, restore. And then here's one of the new things that he added into the download for the newest 0.21 firmware. And I already have it on my SD.IEC. But if you go into the folder that you downloaded with the 0.21 firmware, you'll see another folder in there. You'll see SK Pico patch, and you could fix it there by doing the arguments in the command to make your new firmware with your programs and all that. But the other folder you'll see says SK Pico timing, and if you go into that, you'll see SK Pico timing.prg. So put that on your SD.IEC or on a disk, I guess, if you wanted to go that route, whatever, on your Ultimate cartridge. You could, in theory, or not in theory, I mean, you could just patch this into the Pico, but that's not a great solution, because if you patch it in as a PRG, you can get to it from the Pico menu, but if you can't access the Pico menu because your timings are wrong, that's not the best place for it. So anyway, I would recommend you put it in your SD.IEC or whatever you're using to access files on your C64. So I'm going to go back into the file browser in my SD.IEC, run this, and then I'm going to go down utilities here, and then we're going to go to SK Pico timing. Some of you guys might have seen that already, but click on that, and this is kind of this is the program that's in the new firmware download. And it's kind of a brute force method of changing those timings to make them correct. So load that up, and you see here it says new read bus value 3 to 20. The default is 11 and 15. You'll see the 15 after, but you'll see people talking about it here and there, like on the GitHub. The lower number is first in this little program. So for mine, just from having done this while I was running back and forth in the testing, usually when I'm having trouble, if I change read bus to 9 and then phi 2 to 13 and hit enter. So what that just did was it patched it on the fly, and this is permanent. This will survive shutdown and restarts and resets, all that. So it's changing it's reflashing these timings into the Pico. But anyway, now if we go to launch the menu, it will launch reliably every single time. There won't be any warnings. There won't be any where it just when you type in the sys command, it just flashes and it goes back to ready. And then do another one here. But you won't see that warning message or that error message after you have your timings adjusted correctly. Now, most people don't have to do this. It seems to work, from what he said, on 99% of the machines, and that very much seems to be the case. But if you have one of these outliers, like I said, for me, it seemed to happen a lot more if you were using a replacement kernel chip, like a modern, like a 27512, in an adapter or something like that. It seemed to occur more frequently in those kind of situations. But now that we have the timings correct, we can switch this as much as we want to, and we will not have an issue. You saw I changed it to 6581, which corrupted the menu and wouldn't play audio anymore, but you see now it works as it should. Excuse me, I want to show you some of the new features that were added to this firmware, and they're really cool. So we're going to go back into the Pico menu. Alright, here we are. You have this stuff's all the same here. Everything here I think is the something for FM. I forget what he said it did. I'm not using FM on mine. But here you have SID number 2 and FM. In order to use this, you need to hook up some lines from the Pico to your C64. I think it was address A9, and I don't remember what the other one was, but you needed a couple things to do it. And he added something with that, a volume adjustment, and then if the volume was if it was like too high, it would clamp, something like that. But what I wanted to show you here is on the 0.20 firmware, some of you guys have seen, I'm sure, you could use SK Pico patch that came with the firmware download, like I was talking about before, and you could patch programs to your onto your Pico that you could launch from this menu. So you would go into F7 here. You see at the bottom is load, save, config, help, exit, and then files, and then default settings. So if you hit F7, you go into files, and this is where your files would have been that you patched in. Now I don't have any right now. I didn't use SK Pico patch to patch it in. But one of the cool things he added here is you see at the bottom, it says flash. So if you go to one of these slots that says empty and hit flash, it's going to read in your device, and it would work better if I had it set up correctly. Let me make sure I'm in the right menu here. No, I'm not. Oh, right. This is important too. I'm going to leave this in because this is an important detail. It will only work from reading in from device 8. Oh, there we go. This should be it. Go back in here, F7 for files, and then hit F for flash, and it's going to show me the stuff I have on my SD.IEC. This is device 8, and that's important. As of right now, it will only do this to read the stuff from device 8. But anyway, you can flash in programs up to 200 blocks from your device 8 that's plugged into your C64 directly to your Pico, and then have them where you can launch them from the SidKick Pico. So after you do this, you could not have your SD.IEC or set it to device 9 or whatever you want to do, and you'll still have whatever files that you flashed in available from the Pico. So now you can flash stuff from your computer directly, from your C64 directly, instead of using your Windows machine in the SK Pico patch program like you had to do in the last firmware. But let's see, we'll just do the big one. I think I can go down this. Yeah, you hit space and it goes down. Keyboard 1 program. I think this is a test program, I'm not sure, but it's a small one, so let's just do it. So you see it's file 0 in the list right now. So hit 0 on your C64 and it will start copying that stuff to your Pico. And we'll wait till it's done. You saw Donkey Kong on there. I could have done that. It's just it would have taken a while. It's a lot bigger of a program. Anyway, that transferred to the flash successfully. So I hit the back arrow, which is the where escape would be on your Windows PC. Back, and then there it is. And now if you hit enter on it, you can launch it, and it will launch the program for you. And then there's this test, C64 keyboard test. Alrighty. Now I'm going to reset. I'm going to power cycle the machine just so you can kind of see it. Go back, and then F7 for files, and then there you see it's still there. It survives power cycles. It's been flashed to the Pico. And then another thing he added, not only can you flash them onto it, but now you can delete them. Now it's gone. So you can free up space and put new stuff on. You can also not delete the stuff and just overwrite it. I tried that in some of the release candidates he had sent me. That worked fine. You can just overwrite the file that's there, and it seems to handle that just fine. And then let me go back here. Let me see, F7 for files. Yeah, he added some cool stuff to this. Just the file stuff is really neat. Let me go back to that. F7 files, and then We'll just flash it back on there real quick. And actually, we'll just do the Donkey Kong. You can see it'll work with a big one. I'm gonna skip past this so you guys don't have to wait for the loading. Okay, so it's done copying. The PRG transferred to flash. So I hit the back arrow to go back. And then you can see it here in the list. Donkey 1 PRG. Now if I hit enter on there, it will hop back out and load in Donkey Kong. This is Donkey Kong Arcade. And you guys that know Adrian's Digital Basement, you know this one. But you can see that works fine. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off. And then one more thing as far as the files go, just because I had mentioned it. I go down, not down, F7, there you go. And instead of hitting delete, I'm going to hit flash, so F, and you saw I was on the Donkey Kong file. So we'll go continue, which is space, and then 0. We'll load that in where Donkey Kong was. So this one we'll just do because it's only 14 blocks. Alright, so that's done. Now we're going to go back, and you see now Donkey Kong's been overwritten. Press enter. It will launch the keyboard program again. But yeah, so you can delete them, you can overwrite them, and most importantly and most cool is that you can now flash the stuff from your C64. You don't have to patch it. You don't have to make a patched firmware on your PC and then, you know, load that firmware onto your Pico. You can just, if you have it on your SD.IEC or on your Ultimate cartridge. I did test this, by the way. When we were doing our back and forth testing, I tested this loading stuff from the Ultimate cartridge. That worked. I tested it from, again, it's got to be set to device 8. So Ultimate cartridge set as device 8. That worked. And also tested loading from a 1541 drive set to device 8, which they are by default. But that worked. But alright, so I just wanted to show you guys, since we were talking about some of the testing that I did, I'm going to show you one of the diag tools that he sent me and kind of what would happen if you had an issue with them. One second. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you guys in this video is one of the tools that he sent me for debugging purposes. So he sent me this tool, and what I would do is I would try different board revisions, so like 250, 407, 250, 425, the 298, 326, or 326, 298 board, and the 250, 466. That's all the NTSC boards I have here. And then I have one PAL that was converted from NTSC to PAL, but I never saw this problem manifest on a PAL board. But anyway, he sent me these tools. He would change something, send me the tool, and then I would take pictures of all the different boards with different kernel versions, because at first I thought it was something to do with the kernel version, but that really wasn't the case. It was timing, as you saw. But it would, like I said, it would display more prominently with replacement kernels. So I would try the different boards with say kernel 3 original or kernel 3 with a replacement, 27 256 or whatever, and then I would try like original kernel 2 and replacement kernel 2, etc. on the different board versions. But here's this tool. It's kind of neat, and I don't know exactly what he's looking for here, but basically this tool is sending data between the Pico and the C64, and it's checking to see if the communication was successful. And if the communication were working correctly, where it says D0 to 7 test, A0 to 3 test, read-write test, pot plus GPIO, directory test, it's in orange. If the communication were successful, it would be in green. And where it says R equals 0, 0, if it were working correctly, that should be R equals 0, 2. And you can press down and send more data and keep cycling through. And you'll see here occasionally one of them will pop up in let's see there, it's in green. The R is still 0, so those are still not working correctly. But yeah, it's just kind of a neat little tool that he came up with, I guess, just to try to get an idea of what was going on. And then I want to see if we can see the difference here. I'm going to swap out the kernel real quick for right now I have a replacement kernel 3, and it's one that I designed that uses SST39 SF010. But it also, with the replacements, I had one that came from like eBay that uses a DIP 27C64, and it did the same stuff. But I'm going to put in a genuine kernel 3 MOS chip, and we'll see if it makes a difference in that diag program. So launch the program, and then there you can already see, and then this is why I thought it was a kernel issue. You see there, they're all green, and you have R equals 0.2. That's what it's supposed to do. And I'll just run through a few cycles. So there you had an error. That's why DO through 7 is in orange, and R equals 0. But you can see with the original one, it does seem to work more reliably. And the only thing I changed was kernel 3 to kernel 3, but one was a replacement, one was an original. And it's still, it's failing here and there, but it's much more consistent. And this is why I ended up doing so many like different permutations of board revision and kernel version, just because I thought it was a kernel issue. And this is before he had told me, try to adjust the timings, which is what fixed it. So I'm guessing that this is just an assumption, purely an assumption, or a guess. I'm assuming that on the replacement kernel that I made, I'm guessing the SST39 SF010, this is a 70 nanosecond chip, by the way, is so much faster than the original kernel that it's causing issues. Whereas the original kernel, I don't know what the speed is, but I assure you it's slower. It's an old, it's the original one from the 90s or late 80s, early 90s, whatever it is. Must be slower, and that difference is affecting the timing enough to make that big of a difference. I tried different PLAs and stuff like that before we came to the correct conclusion that it was just the timing on the bus. The new stuff on the Pico, it's awesome. I really appreciate the guy that has made this stuff. It's a great project, and the newest version, I'll have a link to it below. It's really cool because it's almost the same size as an original SID chip, which is, it's great. It blends in better, and you got to get less parts. You don't need a Pico, but you do need to get the RP 2040. But I guess more than anything, you can buy that board assembled from PCBWay or whoever, and that's a good feature for some people. And then I want to show you a little bit of the testing stuff that I was going through to try to solve this issue, which was more or less self-inflicted by not, RTFM, they say, right? Read the effing manual. I just missed that part, but nonetheless, it led to some cool features with the whole warning system and the error system being added in. And then in the middle of it, he went ahead and added the ability to flash files from your device 8 to your Pico directly, which is great. And he also, in the middle of the testing, added in the ability to adjust the timings from the C64. Because before, to adjust those timings, you had to go over and make a patched firmware on your PC and then load that into the Pico and see if it worked. And if it didn't, you would have to do it again. But now you just put it on your SD.IEC or whatever your file transfer mechanism is. You put it on there and load it in, and then you can adjust it. And if it doesn't work, you can adjust it again, and you can just keep doing that until you get it where it wants to be for your board. Just a super cool project, and I was really happy to be able to help him with the testing, just do any kind of help. It was just fun, kind of seeing under the hood a little bit. It was neat, and yeah, that's pretty much it. the next video that I do, let's see if I can get this up here for you guys to see. My plan for the next video is showing you how I built, let's see if I can get it into focus or not. Oh yeah, I have locked the focus, hold on. There we go. I made, this is the revision 2 Pico, the one without the DAC on it. So this is just the normal one that outputs audio through the regular audio output on your C64. And actually, this one's not the best example because this was kind of while I was still figuring out the parts thing. Let me grab the one out of the C64. It's a good example of what I'm talking about here. Okay, so I'm going to show how I built this and provide links to the parts. But what I wanted to do was get it to where I had a socketed SidKick, or I had a socketed Pico in my SidKick, but that it didn't set up a ½ an inch off the board. So I ended up coming up with these PCB pins and sockets that are individual. So this is the same two that you just saw, and you have your individual sockets and they kind of hang down there, you see them, and then you have these individual pins. And I'm just going to show you guys how I build it, and then give you links to the stuff in case you wanted to build one. But I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know if it has much benefit, but it was neat nonetheless. And it allows you to switch Picos, if nothing else, easily. So there it is, and you just push it down, and it sits like, you know, a couple millimeters off of the board. But that'll be what the next video is about. That's it for this one. And as always, I really appreciate you guys. Anybody that's subscribed or liked the video, I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. I haven't made a video in a while, as you'll probably notice. It's been like 2 months, but this summer has been incredibly busy. I got like 100 different projects I'm doing, and then work and etc. etc. But I've even got some subscribers while I haven't been making videos, so that's really nice to see. But I'm going to try to get back to making them as much as I possibly can, or as often as I can. And yeah, I appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.